How about the Miami Hurricanes beating the Clemson Tigers with a backup quarterback? What a win. What a big win for this program and for Mario Cristobal tonight. Let's just get right into it, man. Let's get these questions rolling in. But man, I'm excited as the rest of you are 100%. I mean, look, you tonight Miami stood in the pocket and beat Clemson with a backup quarterback. This was a signature win. We all understand this is not the same Clemson team as it's been, but tonight, Mario Cristobal, his staff made a statement. Lance Guidry, hats off to you tonight. Everyone understood that as soon as Tyler Van Dyke was ruled out of this ball game, it was going to be an uphill climb for the Canes. Everyone understood that Emory Williams did an incredible job at the end of this game, managing the game, making some throws that he had to make, but they weren't going to trust him throwing the ball downfield, right? So everyone was getting frustrated. Middle part of the game, third quarter was frustrating seeing all these side to side throws, but we see what happens at the end of the game as the Canes were able to outlast and really, really, really such a big win for this program. And yeah, let's get into some of these questions here as hopefully D Money can join us tonight. But man, Ruben Bain, let's start giving these shout outs down the line, right? So Emory Williams, we all know 151 yards passing. Yes, if you look at the box score, he's not going to be in any, you know, big awards for the week or anything like that. But the way that he was able to manage this game and then the throws that he made down the stretch there were really, really big. Brashard Smith, his explosiveness, we keep seeing the plays that he's making week in, week out. The expanded role, I think, for him is necessary. It's much called for. And I mean, as all right, here we go. Assad, Corey Flagg, what a play by him at the end of the game there. To me, it's interesting, right? Because his weakness for years, right, is side to side ability and the way that he was able to track Klubnik to the sideline there to me was game changing. I mean, that was the game. And if you would have said Corey Flagg was the one making that play 2-3 years ago, people would have called you crazy. But hats off to that kid. Mario, you could tell he was, doing the post game stuff for ACC Network and stuff like that, and he was relieved. You could see this is just a big springboard win for this program moving forward. I said it the other day, but I'll say it again. Last week's performance against North Carolina would not have been as big of a topic of discussion as it was if the week before against Georgia Tech did not happen. So Carolina, before the season, we would have called that a toss-up game, right? Obviously, the tempo hurt the Canes. They wore them down. Miami ends up losing that game. If Georgia Tech does not happen the week before, we aren't so upset about what's happened the last couple of weeks. You go out there and you do what you do against Clemson this week. It was not pretty, but you have your starting quarterback ruled out. I mean, listen, from what I understand, Tyler Van Dyke did not practice all week for precautionary reasons, trying to keep him as healthy as possible. Tried to give it a go before the game. He was not ready. And unfortunately was not ready to go. Emory Williams stepped up, and it was obvious that Shannon Dawson, as I don't know how many of you heard it or not, but on the ACC network, Mario Cristobal said Shannon Dawson told him this was the hardest game he's ever had to call as an offensive coordinator. So that puts into perspective what he was working with. Not that Emery Williams, I think, especially after tonight, you have to be optimistic about what he can become. But you cannot expect a guy who is starting in his first game against the Clemson Tigers to come out there and light it up, and for an offensive coordinator to trust him to make all these throws downfield. But obviously, this was the correct game plan for him because they trusted the defense. For a little bit there, it was dicey, right? I mean, look, it's crazy to see Emery now. I'm sorry, I'm turning my head over here, but I'm watching him on the ACC network post game show, and these moments for him are invaluable. It was not a pretty game all around, but what a learning moment for this guy and what an experience for him moving forward. Hopefully we have TVD the next few games, but we never know. I mean, it was obviously serious enough to hold him out against Clemson. So, want to get to some questions here as I get some water. It was awesome to see TVD after the game. I mean, embracing Emery. You could tell. Look, TVD cares very much so about this team and about this program. I understand for those of you who are watching from the outside looking in, TVD may not always be the most vocal guy. He may not be the most animated, but he cares very, very deeply about this team, about this program. You see how he reacted there with Emery, and it was evident that he was hyped up. So hopefully we got TVD moving forward. All right. I'm going to scroll up here. Ruben Bain, I mean, unbelievable, this guy. He was all over the place, affecting the game in, I mean, play after play. At the end of the game there, he was dominant. And again, things that don't show up in the stat sheet, right? It may not be a sack, but it's definitely going to be a hurry, a rush, and he's affecting what's happening for sure. How about Leonard Taylor? I was texting some people during the game. I said, look, LT has gotten a lot of heat from people on the comment section, from people on Twitter, from people on Kane's Insight message boards. Leonard Taylor, again, has a target on his back because he is a projected first round pick in these mock drafts. Things you read online about him: 5-star recruit, top 5 prospect in his recruiting class. Tonight, he shows why he has that billing, right? I mean, the disruptiveness, especially in the first half there. I mean, play after play after play where he's in the backfield. And to me, if that consistency continues, shows why he is projected to be a first round pick. Now, needs to continue, but man, if he can keep that up, what a big development for this defensive line, which if you want to nitpick defensively from the last, few weeks, the defensive line needs to be able to continue to get pressure with the front four there, because that is, if you look at Lance Guidry's defense, he likes to mix it up. He likes to send blitzes from different angles and things of that nature. But if you can create that pressure without having to send extra guys, it makes all the difference in the world. Run defense again. YouTuber here. talking about how good this Canes run defense was. And shout out to Nick Echeverria, West End Zone. He also texted me this to look at the run numbers for Clemson. 34 attempts on the ground, 34 attempts on the ground, 31 yards. So less than a yard per attempt, zero point 0.9 yards per attempt. There was nothing there all night long. And when you're talking about a Clemson team that Cade Klubnik at the quarterback position, they did not trust him necessarily. I mean, they took some shots downfield, but for the most part, Miami did their job in coverage. So the run game was non-existent for Clemson. A lot of that goes to Lance Guidry and his scheme. But those guys up front did a really, really good job. Don Vaughn, I mean, just continuing to go on the storylines that we're talking about. Lance Guidry did an incredible job. And Shannon Dawson, yes, did this team score 40, 50 points tonight? No, they did not. But Shannon Dawson had a very, very, very difficult job on his hands. A guy who's starting his first game, taking his first real meaningful snaps, right, in Emory Williams. And the other side is a top 5 total defense. You're talking about a Clemson team that, if you look at all the numbers, they are an elite defense, right? So you had an understanding that you could not be chucking it downfield the same way that you would have if TVD was starting. So Shannon Dawson trusted his offensive line. This is, Coach Cristobal, Coach Mirabal is doing, leaned on that offensive line. AJ Allen, what a game. I mean, that's another guy to me that should be shouted out big time. AJ Allen, let's see what his numbers were. 54 yards. I mean, 16 carries. If you just look at his yards per carry, may not be that impressive, but you see some of the runs he made, making guys miss there at the end of the game. Vital, carries by him there. Colby Young, Taylor Garcia says Colby Young is so good, it's crazy. Look, he had that drop there near the end of the game that obviously would have been a big play, but comes out the next play, secures the catch, scores the touchdown as well. So it's obvious that these quarterbacks, whether it's TVD or Emory, they trust him. You got to throw it up to him. Goes up there, makes the play. I mean, Miami hasn't had a guy like him in a while, right? That you can just throw the ball up to, and he makes the play at the goal line, or for the first down catch as well. Lexi Burchard is balling. Early in the season, we saw his kickoff return against Texas A&M. You see the burst there, and it's amazing, right? With the injury to Parrish, Fletcher obviously not available either. Burchard came in and fills a role where we saw him play this in high school at Palmetto as well, where they would hand him the ball out of the backfield. We've seen this at times the last couple of years as well for him, where he's gotten the ball out of the backfield. But a guy who has a lot of ability, not just as a receiver. You just got to get a guy like that the ball, right? I mean, he's an extremely talented guy who is built to take some hits too. He's not a skinny guy. He's pretty well put together. So pretty crazy play there, obviously, with the 80-yard touchdown that he fumbled at the goal line, and then Jacoby recovered it. But Um, man, he's electric when you get the ball in his hands. Alejandro Magnan, former. Listen, I don't want to call him former. He's always welcome back whenever he wants to come and bring some more Kane's insight to the show and to the forums. But Ale Magnan, a good friend of mine from growing up, asks recruiting momentum impact. Look, people always ask, well, are we going to get a commitment from this win? There's never a direct commitment because of something that happens, but things are a whole lot better uh, with a comeback win against Clemson than trying to recruit when you're three losses in a row. So this is I don't want to call it momentum, but this stops the bleeding for what has been going on, right? Obviously, tough loss on the recruiting circuit today in LJ McCray. And I'm not going to say what's happened in the last 2 weeks has been the reason that they lost a McCray, but if you're recruiting guys like this and you now lose three in a row, it's way more difficult than if you say, all right, we're 5-2 now. I don't know if they're going to be a top 25 team, but they're probably right outside the cusp of that. But you beat a Clemson team and you have opportunities in front of you. You have the Florida State team in front of you, and you have plenty of ACC teams on your schedule as well. So if they can keep things going now, it's a momentum starter, right? So that's what I would say. This is not going to be something where they get a bunch of recruits because of this win, but definitely stops the bleeding. Martin, how you doing, my man? Appreciate you listening as always. Good morning from Africa. Salute you. Thank you for listening. James, corners held their own despite being outmatched. I mean, it was physical out there in the secondary. It was a very good back and forth. I kept holding my breath, thinking that there would be some flags thrown on certain occasions, but they were letting them play out there for the most part. So Jaden Davis, Daryl Porter, Ja'Cory Couch, James Williams, Cam Kitchens. I mean, Klubnik is not known to be a big time downfield passing threat, but they were testing that Miami secondary and they definitely stood up to the challenge. Just Shay, shout out to Coach Mario, big win for this program. I mean, you got to think that for Mario, this has to be such a sigh of relief. They were showing him on the sidelines there in the fourth quarter, and he was sweating it out. But what a bounce back win for him and this program after that. Again, after that Georgia Tech loss, because last week was a loss against a very talented Carolina team on the road, but the Georgia Tech loss was the one that really sparked the feeling over the last couple of weeks that was negative, right? So for Mario to get the job done back where the Georgia Tech loss happened, to me is such a big thing for him and this program moving forward. Cody, definitely a safety to me. I mean, I saw that play. I watched the replay countless times, and it was one of those things where I I did not understand how it was not a a safety. I'm texting D Money now. I think D Money's gonna hop on the stream here, which would be an awesome thing for everyone. Let me see if I get any more questions here. Knox Kane, thank you, Mr. Flag and Mr. Bain, for saving another horrible game by Mario. Look, Corey Flag and Ruben Bain were definitely MVPs of this ball game. To me, again, I'll say what I said in the beginning of the show. Corey Flag, that sort of play was what he was much maligned for. And the ability for him to get to the sideline there was awesome to see. Let me get D Money here. Just Jay, smart decision by the staff to lean on the running backs and then trust Emery with timely throws in the clutch. AJ Allen, Don Chaney, those guys were, I mean, Chaney with the downhill runs, AJ Allen with the ability to make guys miss and then get downhill. Really, really, I mean, special from both of them. How about them Canes? All right, I think we're going to get D Money on here momentarily. D Money.
Can you hear me?
We're getting D
Yo, can
Money
you hear
on
me?
here now. Doesn't look
Can
like
you hear
we're
me?
all right, let's see.
Can
D,
you
you
hear
hear
me?
me?
Get off of the Bluetooth. Oh yeah, I hear you.
All right, I'm gonna remove D until we get him fully on here.
NB.org.
D Money.
Can you hear me now? Yo, can you hear me?
I don't think we can. Can you guys hear him?
Yo, can you hear me?
Well, for some reason I can't. So D.
What's up?
All right, I hear you now. What's going on, man? How you feeling?
Good, man. I'm driving. You're stuck in traffic. I lost my voice. You know, I told my wife I'd be good. I was calm as a cucumber the whole game, and then they called that safety that defied the laws of physics. So I lost my voice. You know, I lost whatever points I had garnered for not going crazy the whole game. Um, Half the section probably left because I went nuts, but whatever. It's all good. Um, Season changing win, man. Season changing win. It was looking ugly for a minute. You know, a lot of people were checking out or about to check out. And to see something like that where you not only get back on track, but you overcome a program that has physically dominated you for, you know, really almost a decade, going back to 2015. And then to flip the script to where they looked physically helpless at times. Their quarterback was running for his life We're used to seeing Christian Wilkins sending our guys doing splits and backflips, or Cleveland Farrell or all these guys, Shaq Lawson. So to see Ruben Bain on our side, to see the offensive line pushing him around, running when we needed to run, stopping the run when we needed to stop it. It's more than just the win. I think it's the statement to recruits, to the ACC, to everybody that this is a different Miami team, a different look of the Miami team, and this could have gone real south, man. We were worried. Me and you were worried. We were worried about the site. I was trying to, you know, I was worried that I might need to find a new hobby. This was about to go this was about to go sideways on us with the numbers and everything. But man, uh, people now have renewed faith. Recruits have renewed faith, and couldn't be happier, brother.
Miami just beat Clemson with a backup quarterback, which is what I said at the start of the show. I mean, can you quantify that?
No, and listen, I mean, the juice was not there at all. It be in the tailgate. I wasn't feeling it. I mean, I was. It was kind of like a funeral. You were expecting the worst. You know, because of the way the Georgia Tech game ended, the fact that UNC didn't go your way, then to not have TVD. I mean, that's a 1-2-3, right? That's a TKO. It was looking like this season was going to be done, possibly tonight. And the energy was terrible. Although I'll say the crowd filled in real nice, and then once it got going, the crowd got into it. But just there was a lot of dread in the fan base and in the stadium, and certainly when it was 17-7, there was a lot of dread. So for Miami to withstand that and come through, it's a different type of Miami team. They're not they're not back, but they're back on track. 5-2, two very winnable games coming up. Of course, Georgia Tech was very winnable, but two very winnable games coming up. And you learn a lot about your backup quarterback. You certainly learned a lot about your defense and your defensive coordinator.
D, a lot of people are asking about recruiting. What I said was that this stops the bleeding in terms of the last couple of weeks. I don't think they're gonna, land anyone because of this win, but it's a lot easier to recruit in this position than off of 3 straight losses.
Well, let me stop you there. So this win was very important, and I'm going to talk about one player in particular. I know he already gave a quote to Gabby. Shout out to Gabby for getting the quote at 247. Ellis Robinson was here. We've been saying on the podcast for months, Ellis Robinson is the guy, probably along with Jeremiah Smith, that's been saying, I want to come here. I need to see that you guys are on the right track. He's been committed to Georgia. So the fact that he's still coming and flirting and visiting and doing all these things, that says a lot. But he was very honest. This guy's a straightforward type of kid. He said, listen, I want to see that you're back on track. And I believe he told Gabby this is a difference-making type of win for him because now he sees the proof. And he knows he'll walk in and start opposite Daryl Porter, So for a guy like that, who happens to be probably the best player in the country, arguably him and Jeremiah Smith, and probably him being number one, that's a pretty important win. And I think if you're talking about one player, it's a lot of players are impacted by this, but that's one that when you see Miami defeat Clemson with your own eyes, it becomes a lot more real. And he wants to come here. Why else would he be visiting? Why else would he's committed to the best program in the country. Why is he visiting? He's from the Northeast. This guy's not a country bumpkin. Athens, Georgia is not his thing. He's in Miami every other week. We know that. So if you talk about one player to focus on that was in the house today, Ellis Robinson, possibly the best player in the nation, would be the best cornerback Miami's ever signed, ever.
Shout out to the 265 plus watching this live show at 12:45 in the morning. Big win for the Canes. I mean, look, this win is after the last couple weeks. It's more than just a season saver, right? It could be a momentum saver moving forward, not only in recruiting, but you get a TVD back next week. Emory Williams has to be flying, sky high with confidence after winning this game, right? I mean, a lot of implications from this win.
Oh yeah, and look, if Miami's trenches, look, I'll say it like this: think back to last year, where Mario really was dealing with what he inherited, and how physically dominant Clemson was, just like all the other years. In 1 year, the tables completely turned, and Ruben Bain is tossing people out of the club. Miami is getting the 1 yard. Clemson is not getting the 1 yard. That was 1 year difference. So that kind of thing. Look, you're gonna have games with turnovers, like the last two games for Miami, and penalties, and schemes and all these kind of things. Trenches travel. Trenches are consistent. You can set your watch to good offensive line and defensive line play. There's not a lot of variation with it. And that, of course, is what the great programs in college football have at a base, as a baseline. It shouldn't get worse, right? It should stay at a level as Miami has more success, because now you can sell the offensive line performance. You can sell the defensive line performance. And look, I'm going to say this. Shout out to Coach Joe. He's struggled in recruiting heavily. We got to be honest about that. I mean, majorly struggled in recruiting. But those defensive linemen, those defensive tackles, Harrison Hunt, Leonard Taylor, I mean, they were beating the hell out of Clemson up front. So, it's everybody's down on Coach Joe, justifiably so, because of the recruiting side. But man, they look good on the field, and you know that they're going to keep plugging away. And I think they're going to have some success in keeping these trenches how they are, because it's a major difference from 1 year to the next.
Flag is a cane for life. Mario needs to hire him or hire a time and situation coordinator. Is these are two separate comments from Cuban Kane, but Corey Flag, how about his performance tonight, D? I mean, he had a big play in coverage late, and then, of course, makes the game-winning play there on the goal line.
No, absolutely huge. Corey Flag's a guy. He's gotten a lot of, to me, unnecessary hate on the message boards and on the Twitter and everything. I mean, look, the guy, he can't help that he's 5'11". He can't help that he doesn't run a 4.4. But the guy's made a lot of plays. Look at his stats. He's made a lot of tackles for loss, a lot of sacks. And then to be rewarded for his consistency, for not jumping in the transfer portal where he could have, and making a play like that, you're just extremely happy for the player. So, that was the first thing I tweeted after the game. The only thing I tweeted after the game was about Corey Flags. I'm just so happy that he made the play. And by the way, shout out to everybody on that's on this live. I saw some super chats. I can't really see too well because I'm driving. My wife's here next to me. She's got to hold the phone next to me like Tony Schiavone talking to Ric Flair, or else it might get into crash here. But so thanks for everybody's support, and stay on the boards, man. Because a win like this, it's hard to be on the boards when we're losing. But a win like this, now you're going to see the booty gifs, you're going to see the celebratory stuff, and it's there's no better place to be than on CanesInsight.com, the forums, man. So jump on those.
Manny Soto, or Manuel, I should say, says Mario almost lost this game. Should have won in regulation. Look, Manuel, if Mario would have called some pass plays there, or even would have ran some plays that would have potentially become turnovers, then this would have been a whole different discussion. He obviously trusted his team going into that overtime, and things turned out okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was screaming the same thing. I'm like, you got a kicker that can make it 60 yards. Try to win it now. I didn't want a true freshman having to score touchdowns in overtime. But look, you don't apologize when you win it. Watching this game, Mario is Butch Davis. He's going to frustrate you like Butch Davis used to frustrate you. But at the same time, he's going to build the program up with a solid foundation and hopefully keep moving in that direction to when the breakthrough happens, it's unreal. So expecting Mario to be like I don't know, an Urban Meyer, a Lincoln Riley, he's not going to be that. That's not going to happen. So he's going to be conservative, and he's going to do things like this. And sometimes he'll win, sometimes he'll lose. You just hope he makes well thought out decisions, not like Georgia Tech, right? There's a difference between being conservative and being, you know, wrong. Um, we can live with conservative if some of the other stuff is good. Wrong is where you get into trouble. I was cheering for them. Look, I was saying the same thing. Let's try to win in regulation, kick the field goal, trust your kicker. Your quarterback is going to have a tough time scoring touchdowns, but the guy was able to score touchdowns, and the rest is history.
How about this one, D? Before the season, I'd say 0% of us thought we'd beat A&M and Clemson. Listen, if you would have told Canes fans that this team would have beaten A&M and Clemson, you'd probably think this would be an undefeated or one-loss team right now.
And it's the way they beat him. So against A&M signed how many 5-star defensive linemen? The best defensive line class in the history of recruiting, I believe, right? And they didn't touch TVD. On the flip side, Connor Weigman got hit so many times that he never physically recovered. Same thing in this game. Against a 5-star program that gets 5-star linemen and gets 5-star players, physical domination. So, look, it's one thing to win with smoke and mirrors or lucky plays, but when you win with something like that physical domination, that says something about the direction of your program, and it's a solid foundation. There's going to be games that you should lose that you should. Georgia Tech being bright red among them. There's going to be times where you turn the ball over and go against a stud quarterback like UNC. There's times we may run against a better team. I mean, FSU is going to be the better team in terms of impact players this season. But when you have that solid foundation, it makes a big difference.
Shout out to the almost 350 people watching live right now at, almost 1 a.m. here, Eastern time. Joe Labrador, Coach Joe, says Coach Nicholson has been a great addition to the staff. That linebacker unit is playing out of their minds.
Great call, Coach. We talk about the improvement on the lines. The improvement at linebacker has been incredible. And remember, Chase Smith is lurking. Popo Aguirre, Marcellus Pulliam. Some of these big recruits. Cam Pruitt, who they think is going to be another San Francisco 49ers type linebacker. The talent at linebackers going up. So a guy like Nicholson coaching him up like he's been, that's a position that could be starting to look more like Miami Hurricane. And we're already seeing it look more like a Miami Hurricanes linebacker group than it has probably since Shaq Quarterman was out there doing his thing a few years ago.
Hit the like and the subscribe buttons for the page. Like this video, subscribe to the page, and of course, canesinsight.com is always the place to go to for your free information. To me, this is a character building win, right? You have this game in Tallahassee in a few weeks, and that's going to be a battle. But you can really go back to some moments in this game, and this team had to dig deep to go and get this one. So a lot of guys grew up in this one.
Yeah, I want to also a guy that let's say two guys I want to shout out. Cam Kitchens had a lot, obviously he's had a roller coaster year. All-America last year, has an incredible against Texas A&M, gets knocked out at the end, comes back, makes a bunch of mistakes against North Carolina, starts getting some pushback from the fan base for the first time in forever, then makes a beautiful interception in this game. And then James Williams, who to me is having an outstanding, almost an all-conference type season. Much more consistent tackling. He had one do-si-do, which he made the tackle again. He spun the guy around again, then he ran him down again. But, much more consistent tackling generally, physical presence, and emotional. He was the first guy running out after Emory Williams after he won the game and was doing his interview. Just an emotional leader and a guy who's really upped his play. Someone who's overcome a lot in his life. Very happy for James Williams.
Cuban Kane asking me, who does Bane remind you of? I think College Sue. Listen, their disruptiveness for sure. It's crazy uh, how often Bain was in the the Clemson backfield tonight.
Yeah, the college Sue, I see the comparison in terms of the raw strength. Sue was a little bigger. Um, I see some Will Anderson too, just in terms of the speed to power. Um, we'll see how his body goes. He's just a freshman. Is he going to be a tackle? Is he going to be an end? Um, we lost on a lot of 5-star defensive linemen this cycle, but we landed a 6-star defensive lineman last cycle. I think we're learning that now.
Michael Hodges is nitpicking here and says the game did not have to be this close. I mean, you had a kid starting his first game in college against Clemson. D.
Yeah, and look, this Clemson offense is pretty bad. Is by Clemson standards, they have no talent at receiver or less talent at receiver. But I mean, these guys don't suck. I mean, I was never a Will Shipley fan, but the guy is a college star, and he didn't do anything today. Um, that defense is very, very talented with NFL players, 2 NFL linebackers, NFL corner, uh, very, very good young defensive linemen. And again, you had a true freshman quarterback who, quite frankly, in the first half, he did not look very confident. I mean, I was in the group chat like, sit him for a series, man. I was at least. I mean, I was not believing, but the guy stuck with it, and obviously got his confidence and showed a ton of moxie um, down the stretch. So you, I will take a victory over Clemson with your backup quarterback any any way you can get it. Especially when you have some adversity like a safety that call doesn't go your way. Um, you know, a couple bad bounces. Obviously, we had some turnovers, but they were good. There were turnovers that were caused. I mean, look at that. They had a one that was a 3-point swing where beautiful call, forced a fumble, and if that bounces to Corey Couch, it's a 3-point swing our way. Bounced to Shipley, he was able to run and get a field goal. So it's not like the ball bounced our way all day, and they still were able to pull out the win. So a game like that, you take it every single day.
Our good friend Nick Echeverria here says that Ruben Bain reminds him of Melvin Ingram.
Yeah, I can see that. The body type, he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's in terms of height, but he's stout. Um, Melvin Ingram probably a little better athlete as far as like he was like a quarterback and stuff and a receiver. Uh, Bain's power to me is another level than Ingram. His power is pretty special with the lower body, his ability to use his body. Um, it's pretty unique. I had to watch the replay, but at least in the stadium, it looked like he picked up the right tackle. And some of you guys might have been watching this on TV. Tell me if I'm wrong in the comments. But I could have sworn in the stadium he picked up Clemson's right tackle at one point and dumped him. I mean, like literally picked them off the ground. At least that's what it looked like. He was tossing dudes.
Well, we have Kane Idaho here comparing him to a Hall of Famer and John Randall. So,
well, listen, Guidry said that he thought he was a defensive tackle. And, Randall was only 290, I think, in his career. Could Bain be that size wise? I'm not saying Hall of Fame. I'm saying size wise. It'll be interesting to see where his body goes.
shout out to our guy Martin Dubé from Zimbabwe here, reporting live from Africa. James Williams' tackling has improved immensely. He was all over the place again tonight, and seems to be wrapping up a whole lot better than he was last year. I think it was a physical thing from what I heard last year. The shoulder was a huge problem for him. But man, looks really, really good right now.
Yeah, I mean, Pete, like I said, you talk to the scouts. If I'm scouting James Williams and I'm saying, man, I really did not like what I saw on that sophomore tape, tackling wise, that torn labrum excuse to me holds a lot more weight seeing what he's done this year. Again, he still has times where he do-si-dos, like you saw when he just tried to spin the tight end around and the guy stayed on his feet. But I mean, he's so long and he has such good closing speed at his length that he's able to really close distance in a hurry. You saw a couple times where Klubnik is not slow, but when he got outside the pocket and Williams was there, that space got eaten up real fast.
D, we haven't talked about. I spoke about it before you came on, but we have a comment here from the Nerve of You Productions. Was happy to see Leonard Taylor ball out. I mean, he was all over the place.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. I mean, Pete, you know how it works. The scouts watch a lot of games, but as far as the GA, like some of the higher ranking guys, they're pulling up the big games, right? And they're saying, let me see how Taylor did against Clemson, right? Let me see how Taylor did against Texas A&M. They're not necessarily seeing how he did against Bethune. He's played big in some of those big games. Last week, really bad game for him. Against what he probably an interior line he should have dominated. He bounced back in a major way today and looked like what he should look like. On the defensive line in general, I mean, again, Jared Harrison Hunt, I thought played well. I have to go back and watch the tape, but all I know is if you would have told me that Shipley and that number 7 would have been so ineffective after seeing some of these other games, Miami's run defense, which statistically is very good, showed it's legit because now it's not only statistically very good, but it has dominated a pretty talented rushing attack.
We had Renee Doggo here saying Bain reminds him of Aaron Donald.
Listen, I hope all these come to pass, but the truth is, let's say it like this: who was the last Miami true freshman defensive lineman that was this dominant?
Rousseau?
Tell me in the comments. I can't, who was it?
I'll say Rousseau, but he was hurt for half the year.
No, he didn't play his true freshman year.
Yeah, he was out.
So, I mean, tell me in the comments who's the last true freshman that dominated like this. Leonard Taylor flashed, but it was nothing like this. Not the consistency of this. A lot of those guys redshirted. Calais Campbell, Warren Sapp. That was kind of the way back with those old defensive tackles. They were older when they started making impacts. I cannot think of a true freshman defensive lineman at Miami that was like this. I can't think of too many true freshmen defensive linemen, period, that were this dominant. I mean, this guy is wrecking an offensive line from a big-time program. He's only getting better.
How about Jared Harrison Hunt tonight as well?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a one-man show. They could not run up the middle. And I'm not a Clemson expert, but I'm pretty, your man Eric McLean, which is a great podcast you guys did. I mean, that's, Pete's really stepping it up with those kind of podcasts with Eric McLean on the Kansas Side podcast with the preview. But, he's talked about Clemson's interior offensive line. That should be their strength, with Tate, Putnam. They have some guys that are pretty talented in terms of the interior offensive line. And those guys could not get any push. Obviously, that was the story of the game because of that goal line stand at the end. They could not push Miami's defensive tackles, which you thought Miami's defensive tackles might be more pass rushers, right? Going into the season, that's what we were talking about. They show that they can be stout as well. And that was just a huge statement for that group.
Question here from Toby: do Cohen and Lee have another year of eligibility? Yes, both of those guys do, but Lee, from what I understand, is going to be, going to test the waters there with the NFL draft. Cohen, we'll see what happens there, but obviously those guys have both been huge to this reshaped offensive line. D, you got anything else to add here before we wrap it up? Really
no,
appreciate
man, I just got home.
I
got a nice vegan pizza waiting for me. Shout out to Pomarola, some cashew cheese. Just want to say thank you everybody for supporting the site, supporting the channel. It felt bleak for a second. I know it was hard to be watching and engaging with all this content when things aren't going too well, but it's only going to go up from here. Recruiting is only going to go up, and this was a season-saving win, but also just like the win against Texas A&M validated a lot. This was another level of validation in terms of toughness, culture. This was a culture. My man Dean texted me this, and I'm stealing his line. A culture defining win. It doesn't get more tough than a goal line stand on defense to win and a goal line rush on offense to win with a true freshman backup quarterback against the team that has ran your conference for almost a decade. So I'm out of voice. I got plenty to say. I'll be typing stuff up. Canes Inside Forum, sign up. Pete, love you. Go Canes.
Go Canes. All right, everyone. See you this week on Canes Insight. Later.